gentlemen, welcome back to Between the Sharks. We are in the 65 C10 daily driver. It is winter, which means it's cold and dark. All right, gang, we just drove up to support the local burger man and get lunch. So a little shout out to Burger Crush. If you're in the Smyrna, outside of Atlanta area, I highly recommend checking them out. Anyway, that's gotten our truck up to 185, 190 operating temp, we will say. So I'm gonna take a minute in this parking lot while we're all warmed up. Heater's on now. Turn it to old defrost mode. And with our instant read thermometer, she's coming out at about 100 degrees. We're reading 185, 190 on our temperature. Now, it's 55 degrees out, so that's a 50 degree-ish increase, which isn't terrible, but on the cold days, it doesn't seem to do nearly that well. All right, gang, so Dog and I had our hamburger sandwiches, right, LD? And so we're gonna let this thing cool a little bit, but I'm gonna let it cool some more. So the situation is, I'm actually really surprised at that 50 degree increase, but it really doesn't feel like that on cold mornings. Or maybe that's all she's got. So like when it's 28, 29, 30 degrees, it feels kind of lukewarm in the cab. I know you guys know what it's like driving to work in the cold and dark and coming home in the cold and dark. So I'm just gonna see if I can make this a little bit more comfortable. I know, I'm in the Southeast. 30's nothing. You guys that live in the great Canadas, it's a lot colder. But
it's not that cold tonight.
because I'm a working stiff like the rest of you guys, I went ahead and just ordered a heater core, and I thought I'd just replace it to see if that will increase the performance. You can do some CLR, you can do some flushes and all that stuff.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
I know this truck gets hot because it'll overheat all summer long. So considering I've got to get into this box anyway, make sure there's no obstructions or mouse nests or anything like that in there, I figured while I was in there, I'll just spend the 60 bucks because this thing has to flow better. And yeah, gang, this definitely falls under the category of throwing parts at the problem, but I have reasons to believe that a new heater core would be a big help. So let's get this cover off and see what we're working with. Well, gang, you know, I could have flushed it. I could have put some CLR through it, or maybe that's the problem. Wowzers. Okay. Well, gang, yeah. Yep. Okay. Sure. Maybe I keep going a little bit and see how much has gotten under it. Let's take a closer look-see. I mean, can we see, like, we can definitely clean that out. Get out of there. But because this is so easy to access, and the heater hoses can be pulled above the radiator, it's not going to just dump out. We may lose a little, but not much. Not if you've ever done one of these under the dash, you're pretty much emptying the radiator. So maybe I didn't let this cool enough. Pause, please. Must be a Between the Sharks episode. The leaf blowers are humming. Welcome to Little Brown Dog Coffee Central. We're gonna go ahead and roast a little bit of coffee while we wait for our truck to cool down. Drop that. Close this. Coffee is a roasting. There we go. There we go, back one. First 2.5 pounds. Well, gang, it might be tomorrow, but you know, you never know that unless told you. I might have gotten distracted with the coffee a little bit, and then it may have started to rain. Also, in the time between then and now, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and put this in no matter what. There's no way that the other one's not at least partially cruded up on the inside. It's probably 50 plus years old, and this one only cost me 50 American dollars, and I've had good luck with Murray products. It's obviously easy to deal with, so maybe I'll keep the other one as a spare, and we'll CLR it or whatever. We'll see. I don't need to keep anything as a spare. Now that I'm saying that, I need to get rid of everything because I have too much junk. So without a doubt, this is the easiest heater box I've ever worked on. The fact that it's all out under the hood, you're not upside down doing Chinese acrobatics trying to get under the dashboard while your like feet are touching the ceiling, your butt's in the seat, but your shoulders are on the floorboards. This is way better. And this design, genius. Look, there's this cover, goes right there. Pop that off with 5 or 6 screws, and suddenly you can remove all the leaves and debris that are guaranteed to collect. A little bit of a vacuum, and this thing will be good for ages. Ages. I'm pretty excited about it. Should have done this years ago. Feel that way a lot. Now, one other thing, if you fellas are having trouble with your heat, you know, if you watch the channel, I love the big books of literature. So I've got my 63 shop truck manual. There was an addendum for 64, 65, whatever. Basically the same truck. Here, we have an inlet and outlet diagram for the heater hoses in the cooling system section. And what it's saying is, this is the V8, this is the inline 6, that the inlet goes up into either the manifold or the thermostat housing, and the outlet comes from the water pump. This can be confusing. The way that I read these books and interpret them is I'm looking at the engine, so I take that as coolant out of the engine and then coolant back into the engine. It's not inlet and outlet of the heater core itself, because that might be backwards or confusing depending on the way you look at it. So the way I read it is the hot engine juice comes from the water pump as the outlet, and it returns to the inlet on the motor. That's how I interpret it. If you guys know better, please let me know, because it is a little bit confusing. Now you will notice that these are 2 different sizes, and these are 2 different sizes. But, you know, especially with pickup trucks, a lot of bubbas have been here before you. So just because it is how it is, you know, doesn't really whatever.
And it always has been.
Let's see what we got going on here. There's obviously a lot more airflow because there's nothing restricting it at all right now. It's pretty quiet. There's a little bearing noise. So I think I'm gonna use some silicone looby-dooby and then maybe a little bit of penetrating oil. I don't want it to stink, but you know. This is just silicone liquid wrench. Maybe that's a mistake. I'll wipe it down. I don't want a ton of it sitting in there, but you know what I mean. There's clearly water and junk that goes in there. Time to do the old switch-a-roo. Hi-ya! Hi-ya! Karate. Great googly moogly. Yeah! Hi-ya! After no effort at all, I got one hose off. But I'm sure I'm going to spill the contents of this thing out as I get the other one off. So for experiment's sake, we're going to look in here. Obviously there has been some rust and stuff, but we've got pretty green coolant in that joint. I just have a sneaking suspicion this thing isn't flowing all that well. So I kind of want to dump it out. Gang, that's pretty gross. That's an entirely different color than our coolant. Yeah, so that's like a thick, disgusting, muddy milkshake. I'm gonna go ahead and say a new heater core is the way to go. So we got one right yonder. Let's jam it in here and see how we do. Come on, little guy. So for those of you that have watched the channel before, I'm gonna do the same thing I always do, which is I'm gonna run the truck until the thermostat opens. We'll watch the coolant level move. Once everything's flowing, we'll top it off, and then we will cap it off and add pressure. What I don't want to do is start building pressure before I've got the air out of the system. So even though that's pretty high up, this is barely higher. I don't think the camera lens is going to do it justice. So hopefully this will force all of the air out, you know, to the radiator. And then our cooling system will be purged, as they say. Now you will see in line here, I don't have a valve that shuts off the heater in the summer, or either a manual one or one that was attached to the truck initially. You just kind of cut off the airflow, and that's as good as it gets. So let's fire it up. It's gonna take a few minutes to get warm, and then really curious to see what this thing does on full blast now. Gang, the truck's still warming up, but I put these new windshield wipers I bought for the van in the door, and look who's just ready to hang out. Turn the corner, and there she was, just chilling out in her little dog fort. Dog fort. All right, we're sneaking up on it. It's moving. That's warm, but I feel like it ought to be glowing. So that's an interesting conundrum. We might be flushing this block sooner than later. Yeah, I'm used to it like really going once that thermostat opens. And the upper tank is hot, like that's hot. So thermostat's open for sure. Don't know what all that means. But we'll ignore it for now. Jam the cap back on. All right, radiator cap's back on. Now for the moment of truth. All right, we're sneaking up to 110. So the short version is we're getting about 10 more degrees out of it, but we're also getting a monumental increase in volume, like without a doubt. Without a doubt. So I am going to consider that a success. So the air volume has everything to do with the leaves and just how clogged with leaves this core is. As far as the temperature, I mean, this thing's pretty crusty inside, and the passages in the actual fins where my thumb is pretty small. So a little clogging would go a long way toward being very, very restricted. So fingers crossed, we've just improved our ride. So I got to clean this thing out, and we got to take it to town and get a Christmas tree in it tonight. So, you know, for the happiness and Christmas spirit of my other half, it needs to be warm in there. And I think we may have succeeded. Anyway, good luck on your projects. We'll see you next time on Between the Sharks. Yeah, if you got a C10, pull that cover off. Make sure it's not full of gunk before you go out of your way to do anything else. It's pretty easy to do. How about it? All right, see you next time.